Welcome back. Today we talk about 100 facts of the ancient Egyptian civilization Part 1. The Nile River. The Nile River had a great role in the stability of the ancient Egyptian on its banks and his work in agriculture, where he became able to produce his daily livelihood, and then set off to the fields of science, knowledge and tremendous progress. So it was an important role in building this great civilization. And building pyramids and majestic temples and their survival until today. If it were not for the Nile, Egypt would have been a desert without vegetation, water or stability. This great renaissance made Egypt a complete agricultural cycle, and turned the black earth into a fruitful green land. The ancient Egyptians appreciated the Nile River after they realized its importance. So they sanctified its flood and made it a god, and imagined it in the form of a man with a strong body, and has a prominent chest and a huge belly as a symbol of its fertilization. So Egypt was called Tawi, because the Nile divided it into the land of the north and the land of the south. So it was one of the most important titles of the Egyptian king Nabtawi, which means the master of the two lands, north and south. The ancient Egyptian civilization was interested in talking about the Nile. There are many inscriptions, illustrated drawings and artifacts that sanctify it, many of which are in the Egyptian museum. The most important of these pieces is Ostracon, on which the idol Habi is engraved, and the famous statue of King Khafra on which the image of Samatawi is located, which means the unified of the two earths and means the Nile. In addition to boats that were used for hunting, war, travel, transporting stones, etc. The Nile River was an important factor in Egyptian life as a means of transportation, travel and cultural exchange and civilized between Egypt and other countries. Thanks to the Nile River, the sun and the plant and the doctrine of resurrection after death for the ancient Egyptian, where he watched the Nile overflow and anger and then overflow again. And the plant grows and then dies and then grows again. And the sun rises and then sets and then rises again. So the ancient Egyptian realized the resurrection after death was an important reason for the formation and consolidation of his faith. The ancient Egyptians relied on the Nile in calculating the solar year, and they started it with the compatibility of the Yemeni poetic star sunrise with the appearance of the flood. And sunrise here means the appearance of that star on the eastern horizon with the sun, where they divided the year into 3 seasons and divided the season 4 months. And called the seasons names: flood, sowing, development, and harvest. And the month consisted of 30 days, and the year 360 days, and 5 days were added are the days of women, which are the days in which there are 5 main divine holidays. Although the Egyptians in all parts of the country relied on the Nile, they were ignorant of its sources, and they replied that it came from heaven. And they also believed that it was the result of the fall of Isis' tears when she cried the loss of her husband Osiris, so they offered him offerings in time of drought, so that he would return to them with flood. As stated in the famine painting on the island of Suhail in Aswan, a painting recorded in the Ptolemaic era, and talks about the drought that befell Egypt, and how the ancient Egyptian made offerings to the god Habi offerings. Even he is blessed with stability, goodness and development. Sources of the study of ancient Egyptian history. The study of the history of ancient Egypt depends on 4 main sources: Egyptian antiquities, the writings of Greek and Roman travelers and historians, sources of contemporary civilizations in the ancient Near East, and finally what was mentioned in the holy books about Egypt and its conditions. First, Egyptian antiquities. It is all the written and unwritten heritage left by the ancient Egyptian civilization, such as pyramids, temples, tombs, papyrus, coffins and the highest statues. Egyptian antiquities are the most important and truest sources for studying the history of ancient Egypt and to depict aspects of ancient Egyptian life, whether in the political, social, economic or artistic aspects. The most important of those monuments found in historical terms of the so-called lists of kings, which are chronicles dated to some kings in previous eras, and these lists include the names of kings and years of their rule and their important work. Among the most important of these lists are 1. Palermo stone. It was found in Memphis, a stone slab of black diorite stone with a length of 43.5 centimeters, and the stone was found broken into several pieces, including 4 pieces in the Egyptian Museum, 1 piece in the University Museum in London, and the large piece in the Museum of the city of Palermo, the capital of the island of Sicily, to which the stone is attributed. Write on this stone the names of the kings of Egypt from the earliest times until Nefer-ir-Ka-Ra, the third king of the 5th dynasty, so the stone is dated at the end of the 5th dynasty or the beginning of the 6th dynasty. As mentioned by the writer of the stone, ancestors of Mena who were ruling in the Delta and Upper Egypt and called them the name of followers of the god Hor, and is the stone Palermo. The first known attempt to record the news of kings and arrange. The writer of the stone has taken into account the subject in his recording as it separated between the events of each year and another in a headline, and separated between the annals of each king and another horizontal line, and took into account as well in chronological order in the recording of the names of kings and the most important events that took place, such as wars, royal holidays, religious holidays, census, celebrations, and the establishment of temples. Karnak list. This list was recorded during the reign of King Thutmose III, 18th dynasty, on the walls of the ancestral chamber of the Temple of Karnak, and is currently in the Louvre Museum in Paris. The painting includes the names of 61 kings. Of the names of the ancestors of Thutmose III has crashed the beginning of the painting, and the first name is the name of King Sneferu, founder of the 4th dynasty, then the names of some kings of this dynasty, then the names of the kings of the 5th and 6th dynasties, then some kings of the 11th to 17th dynasties. The writer of the Karnak painting omitted the names of some kings who he believed were illegitimate in assuming power, such as the kings of the first transition period, the kings of the Hyksos and Queen Hatshepsut. 3. List of Abydos. This list was engraved during the reign of King Seti I, 19th dynasty, on the walls of his temple in Abydos, and the painting includes the names of 76 kings, starting with the kings of the 1st dynasty and ending with King Seti himself. The painting has omitted the names of some kings, such as the kings of the 9th and 10th dynasties, the kings of the 2nd transition period, the kings of the Hyksos, Queen Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Samnit-Kara, and Tutankhamun. 4. Saqqara list. Found in the tomb of one of the priests in Saqqara and Kulthunri, and was one of the supervisors of the architectural work of King Ramses II, 19th dynasty, and is currently in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and includes cartridges 57 kings glorified by Ramses II, and the painting begins with the 6th king of the 1st dynasty Ankh-ip and ends with King Ramses II. The painting of Saqqara was overthrown by the kings of the 7th to 10th dynasties, the kings of the 2nd transition, the Hyksos, Queen Hatshepsut, Akhenaten and his family who followed him. 5. Turin Papyrus. This papyrus differs from other royal lists in that it is written on papyrus and in hieratic script. This papyrus dates back to the reign of King Ramses II, and this papyrus mentions some royal names that were not mentioned in other lists. The papyrus includes 300 names, beginning with the names of the gods who ruled Egypt and the demigods and kings of the 1st dynasty, starting from Mena until the reign of Ramses II. The Turin Papyrus is one of the most valuable historical sources because its author not only recorded the years of each king, but also the number of months and days after the completion of the years. This papyrus is attributed to the Italian city of Turin, where it keeps its museum. 6. History of Manetone. Manetone, historian, ancient Egyptian from the city of Samanout in the province of Garbia, was a priest during the reign of King Ptolemy II, Philadelphus 280 BC, who commissioned him to write the history of ancient Egypt. Has collected Manetone history of Egypt from inscriptions and stories narrated, arrange the Egyptian kings from the oldest to the latest, and collect kings in families and arrange these families in 30 families attributed each to the country that came out of them or the capital in which they ruled. The history of Manetone begins with King Mena and ends with the conquest of Alexander the Great Egypt in 331 BC, and the history of Manetone is characterized by mentioning the names of the kings who ruled Egypt written in Greek, which was prevalent in the days of Manetone. The history of Manetone was lost in the fire of the Library of Alexandria, and we have only received excerpts from it transmitted by some Jewish historians such as Josephus in the 1st century AD, Julius Africanus in about 220 AD, and Eusebius in about 320 AD. 7. Genealogical texts. It is the texts that tell the lineage of a particular family has spread the habit of recording lineage in the late ages, and its importance is due to the fact that it helps to know the sequence of some kings that lived, the owners of these texts in their eras. These texts are characterized by the fact that they mention the names of kings not mentioned by other royal lists, which makes them complementary to them. One of the most famous of these texts is attributed to a priest who lived in Memphis in the 22nd dynasty, inscribed on a stone-preserved tablet in the Berlin Museum, and this priest is called Ankh-F. and Sekhmet, the priest of the idol Ptah and the goddess Sekhmet. This priest mentioned the names of 60 grandfathers of his, including the king who was his contemporary, and these texts should not be completely relied upon until compared with other sources. Third, sources of contemporary civilizations. It means what was mentioned in the writings of contemporary civilizations of the ancient Egyptian civilizations such as Babylonian, Assyrian, Phoenician and Hittite civilizations. Egypt was in a relationship with the countries of this region in periods of its history, especially in the era of the New Kingdom and the late ages, but these contemporary writings must be compared to what is contemporary in Egypt so that the historical facts appear, and these contemporary sources help track the Egyptian kings and their contemporaries from the kings of the East and its princes. Fourth, the heavenly books. The researcher in ancient Egyptian history can rely on what was mentioned in the holy books, especially in the Torah and the Holy Quran, which narrated many religious stories that are related in one way or another to ancient Egyptian history, such as the story of Abraham, peace be upon him, Joseph and Moses, peace be upon them. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, support us by likes and subscribes.